help. I need somebody. Help. Not just anybody. Help. You know, I need someone. Help. You know, as I was working through this section of the Gospel of John, that song kept popping into my head. I'm not a real Beatles fan, though I'm learning to appreciate their music and lyrics much more now. A pastor friend and I were discussing the lyrics to the Smokey Robinson and Miracles song, Tracks of My Tears. Do you remember those lyrics? It says, people say I'm the life of the party because I tell a joke or two. Although I might be laughing loud and hearty, deep inside I'm blue. So take a good look at my face. You'll see my smile looks out of place. If you look closer, it's easy to trace the tracks of my tears. And then the next line is, I need you, need you. If we took the time to look, I'd bet I could find hundreds of well-known songs that express that same idea. As Smokey said it, I need you. Or as John Lennon said it, I need someone, help. You know, that's a vulnerable place to be. Every one of us have found ourselves in that place at one time or another. Life would be so much better. Life would be a little easier if we had a little help. You know, even if you're not a churchgoer or a Bible reader, you know that as God created in Genesis 1, He created, then evaluated His work and said, it is good. I think we've all heard that, even if we've never opened a Bible, that God made this and said, it is good. Genesis chapter 1, verse 9, it says this, it says, then God said, let the waters under the heaven be gathered together into one place, and let the dry land appear. And it was so. Verse 10, and God called the dry land earth, and the gathering together of the waters He called seas. And God saw that it was good. Then in verses 11 and 12, He created all kinds of plants and bushes and fruit and trees and all of those kinds of things. And He evaluated that and said it was good. Then He separated the day from the night and evaluated that and said it was good. Then He made the living things like the animals, and He evaluated that and said it was good. Then He made man in His own image. And then He stepped back and evaluated it. And He didn't say it was good. As a matter of fact, He said, it is not good. He said, He's alone. Now look, even God is not alone. He is forever together as Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. So He said it is not good for man to be alone. So God created a helpmeet or helpmate for him. Why? We heard John Lennon say it. I need someone. We heard Smokey Robinson say it. I need someone. We heard God say it. It's not good for man to be alone. You see, we were not designed to be alone. We were designed for connection. We were designed for community. When the settlers moved west and began setting up their homesteads, their big farms and ranches, they set them up like this, with the house in the center of their land. That's our natural tendency. But see, they began to have problems, social problems, some mental problems, because they were separated from people. They had no community. They had no connection to other people. They had no help. And that's kind of where the stereotype of the crazy, isolated farmer or loner backwoodsman came from. You can only be alone for so long before it starts to impact you. You see, most stereotypes are rooted at some level in truth. See, then they found if they changed the way they set up their properties, it was better. So they started to do it like this. Rather than the house in the center of their property, far away from everyone else, they moved their home to the corners of their properties so that they were near their neighbors. See, living like this promoted connection and the opportunity for help. Having help is vital to our lives. So God saw Adam was alone and said, "It is not good," and he made him a helpmeet. Genesis 2, it says it like this: they became one flesh. As we look at the life of Jesus, Jesus didn't have a wife. Jesus didn't have a helpmeet. But here's the thing, Jesus was also not alone. I know you're thinking, well, yeah, he had the disciples, and yes, he did, sometimes. But you remember, and we'll see it in the coming weeks, his disciples weren't always reliable. At Jesus' most difficult moment, he was alone. Or was he? I saw something in a familiar text that I have missed. I've been reading the book of John for almost 40 years, and I've never noticed it before. Look at John chapter 1, verse 32. And John bore witness, saying, I saw the Spirit descending from heaven like a dove. We're all familiar with that. We all remember that. We all really know that verse in our mind. But do we know this second part? And he remained upon him. Meno in the Greek. To remain, to dwell. The King James version translates it as abode. See, that's an amazing idea. Even Jesus wasn't alone. You know, I often feel bad for single people, not because they're single, but because they're often treated as if they're incomplete because they're single. And they could be single for various reasons. Some just may have not found the person to spend the rest of their lives with. Some have no desire to find them. Others thought they found them, and because of some level of sin, and you know, I'm probably going to get some texts or emails about that statement, but because of some level of sin, it ended in divorce. And then, of course, there are those who were married and then their spouse passed away. And so now they find themselves single. Not being any choice they made, but just because that's the way it is. Now I want to say this clearly. Whether single by choice or single because of the conditions of life, single people were not designed to be alone. Yeah. And I'm hoping that by the time we finish this short study that we're doing here, that you'll see not only were you not designed to be alone, but that you don't have to be alone. Okay? Look, as we venture into John 14, we see some really interesting things. We're now in the upper room. The Last Supper has just taken place. And Jesus, as we saw last week, has washed the disciples' feet. And He's trying to help them to understand what's about to happen. This is about to be the worst night of their lives. Well, maybe the second worst night of their lives. Everything that they have come to know and believe about Jesus is about to be tested and challenged. They're about to witness the greatest single injustice in history. And I know some of you are going, Bill, really? Isn't that overstating it a little bit? Haven't others been wrongly accused before? Yeah. Haven't others walked through unfair trials before? Yes. Haven't others been lied about in court before? Yes. Haven't others been wrongly condemned to die? Yes. Haven't others been tortured and beaten before? Yeah. Haven't others been spit upon? Yes. Haven't others had to help with their own form of execution before? Yes. Even haven't others been crucified before? Yes. Haven't others been laughed at during all of this? Yeah. Haven't others had their friends abandon them before? Yes. Haven't others wrongfully died? Yes. So why is this the single greatest injustice in history? Well, I'd say this, because never before or never since has the injustice been inflicted upon a completely innocent person. And by completely innocent, I mean completely innocent. You see, we have had countless people wrongfully killed who were innocent of the wrong that they were being killed for. We all know basic history, right? Whether it was Abraham Lincoln shot in a DC theater, or John Kennedy shot in Dallas, or Robert Kennedy shot in Los Angeles, or Malcolm X shot in New York, or Martin Luther King shot in Memphis, where not one of them deserved to die. All of them had sinned at some point in their life. See, Jesus wasn't only innocent of the crime that He was being killed for, He was innocent of ever committing a sin. See, it's unimaginable to me. That level of innocence, it's like that level of innocence can't even exist. That level of perfection. But then there's a second reason why this is the greatest injustice in history. And the second reason is, or a second reason I should say, is this. Had Lincoln known that John Wilkes Booth was going to shoot him at Ford's Theater that night, let me tell you, old Honest Abe would have went to a show on a different night. If JFK would have known what was going to happen driving down that street in Dallas, I would bet he would have argued to put the top up in that car. If RFK would have known what was going to happen as they walked through that hotel kitchen, I would think RFK would say, let's take another route. If Malcolm X would have known what was going to happen in the Audubon Ballroom that night in New York, I would bet that he would have taken preventative measures. He would have made sure they checked for guns at the door. You know, I'll never forget when Jesse Jackson visited Loveland back in the 90s. Jesse, who was on the motel walkway with him when Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated, he said this, he said, had Martin had any idea what was going to happen, he would not have walked out of room 306 of the Lorraine Hotel that day. That's what makes those men different from Jesus. You see, Jesus knew what was about to happen, and he showed up anyway. He knew the brutal death that was before him, and he intentionally walked right into it because he knew he was the only chance that I would have for my sins to be atoned for. He instituted communion, and he told them, his disciples, to continue to fellowship together. And when you do it in remembrance of me. And he washed their feet, and he told them to do the same for each other and for others. And then we get to what we read in John chapter 14. He told them in verse 1, let not your heart be troubled. You believe in God? Believe also in me. In my Father's house are many mansions. If it were not so, I would have told you. I go to prepare a place for you. And if I go to prepare a place for you, I will come again and receive you to myself, that where I am, there you may be also. See, and where I go, you know, and the way you know. And you know, look, Thomas, being Thomas, said, we don't know where you're going, and we don't know the way to get there. To which Jesus answered, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. He's giving all of this to them because of what's about to happen. A nightmare they could have never imagined is about to start. And he tries to settle them. He tries to prepare them. But there's nothing that can prepare them. They could have never imagined what was about to happen. You know, I don't know when you're watching this video, but the time it was being recorded was right around the big hubbub of Will Smith smacking Chris Rock at the Oscars. You may have heard about that. Now, after he publicly smacked Mr. Rock, he went back to his seat, and the show went on. And he sat there and then later received an award. And afterward, part of the outrage was how poorly the Academy handled it in the moment. Should he have been removed? Should he have been arrested? Should he not have received the award? Etc. You know, all of those questions. But here's the thing. This was all afterward, when people had time to work through what had happened, to raise those questions. You see, that moment was unprecedented. One star walks on the stage and smacks another star, and this goes back to his seat and sits through the rest of the show. Nobody knew how to respond to that, at least not in real time. And that was just a slap. These guys' spiritual teacher, their friend, the one they had lived with for the last 3 years, the one that they watched perform miracles, signs, and wonders, was about to be brutally murdered in public for all to see. See, there's no preparation for that. The question it raises, the faith it requires. So Jesus tells them in John chapter 14, verse 16, he says, "And I will pray the Father, and he will give you another helper, that he may abide with you forever. The Spirit of truth, whom the world cannot receive, because it neither sees him nor knows him, but you know him, for he dwells with you and will be in you." So Jesus tells them, look, I'm about to leave here, but I'm asking the Father to send someone to help you. But he actually says this, he says, to send you another helper. Meaning, you have a helper, but I'm going to have him send you another helper. And listen to this, not an additional helper, but a helper of the same kind as you already have. The helper you have now, he walks with you and he talks with you and he teaches you and he leads you. But that helper is leaving. So you need another one. That word there in those verses, helper, is parakletos. Para, we know that word, alongside, parallel, parachurch, parallelogram. Meaning things that are alongside each other. Parachurch organization is it goes alongside of the church. A parallelogram has lines that run parallel with each other. But then the second part of that word, kletos, is really the idea of a counselor and an advocate. And some translations translate parakletos as a comforter. So Jesus said, I'm leaving, but I'm asking the Father to bring someone alongside you, to counsel you, to comfort you, to advocate for you, like I have. Look at the passage. Look at what the helper brings. Here, one, he'll abide with you. I wonder if that Greek word in verse 16 that's translated abide I wonder if we've ever seen that word before. Oh yeah. When the Holy Spirit descended upon Jesus in John 1, meno, to remain. See, so this helper will remain with you forever, the passage says. But this paraclete, parakletos, this will be the Spirit of truth. Now, truth is a difficult topic these days. We hear this term a lot. Have you heard this? Your truth. Yeah, well, as long as he's speaking his truth. You know, a few years ago, there was an issue with something that the president's press secretary was promoting, an idea that he was promoting. And one of the statements was, in response to that, you are entitled to your own opinion, but you're not entitled to your own facts. You see, truth is not a relative term. Now, perception is relative. Interpretations are relative. Preferences are relative. But truth is not. Truth is truth. See, our world has gotten very good at what's called gaslighting. And gaslighting is the attempt to explain or overpower what you know to be true. I should have said explain away or overpower what you know to be true. It's like the woman who caught her husband with another woman. And when she confronted him, he said, it wasn't me. And she said, I saw you. And he said, who are you going to believe, me or your lying eyes? I know that's a little crazy. But see, he was trying to get her to doubt what she knew to be the truth. See, now that verse, it says something else interesting. The Spirit of truth, whom the world cannot receive because it neither sees him nor knows him. The Greek scholar A.T. Robertson puts it like this: the Spirit of truth is real and active, but like radio waves, without a radio, you do not even know they're there. Pardon me for the simplistic metaphor, but the idea is that when you walk with Jesus, you in essence become a radio that can detect the radio waves of the Holy Spirit. You see, without God, without the work of the Holy Spirit, you can't hear what He says. You can't receive and you can't know Him. Well, so Billy, are you saying that Christians are the only one who can know truth? Well, let me tell you what I'm saying. I'm saying that there are many truths of God that the only way to receive and know them is through Him. Okay, what does that mean? It sounds like a bunch of mumbo jumbo, spiritually or spiritual gobbledygook. But let me tell you, it's not. You know, I could spend hours giving examples of truths that are true, but the world ignores them. Or at least part of the world. Or worse, they don't just ignore them, they deny them. Why? Because often it's to the benefit of the denier. So we rationalize, we justify, we obfuscate, we do not receive the truth. Now, that doesn't make it less true. It just makes it less acceptable to us. But then the world around us begins to accept the lie as if it were true, and then for them, it becomes true in a way that they can't fight it. Because they are oblivious to the radio waves. And I say radio waves, again, in a figurative way. Look, I'm not a conspiracy guy. Oh, God uses radio. Look, God speaks to us through His Spirit. Well, let me ask you, is that as clear as mud? Look, here's the bottom line. Jesus knew the kind of world this was. Jesus knew the kind of world this is and the kind of world it would become. He knew, like John, Paul, George, and Ringo, and Smokey. He knew that we would need someone. Jesus said, I'm not leaving you alone. I'm sending someone to be with you forever. He will counsel you. He will advocate for you. He will speak truth to you, and He will comfort you. But you only get another after you have the first one. See, a relationship with Jesus is the prerequisite to experiencing the work of the Holy Spirit in your life. Well, that's all we have time for today. I'll see you next week when we dive into John chapter 15. God bless.